You won't believe how quickly a simple knock turned into a full-blown scene in our quiet, suburban neighborhood because of one overzealous HOA Karen. It started on an ordinary Saturday afternoon. My wife was home alone, enjoying some peace and quiet after a long shift. She was still in her comfy clothes, sipping coffee and catching her breath. Then came the knock. Not once, not twice, but several times. Loud, aggressive, and without any notice. My wife didn't answer because, frankly, she didn't want to. She wasn't expecting anyone. And we've had our fair share of unsolicited visits from HOA board members pushing rules that no one agreed to in the first place. But this time, Karenese, the same HOA Karen who seems to think she runs the entire neighborhood, took it personally. She stormed off, furious that my wife didn't jump to open the door, and within minutes, she did the unthinkable. She called the police, claiming my wife was acting suspiciously and possibly hiding something. She didn't realize she was about to make the biggest mistake of her HOA career. You see, what Karen didn't know is that my wife is the police. Not just an officer, but the actual police chief of our city. Yeah, let that sink in. So when dispatch got the call and my wife's name came up, things started unraveling fast. The tension only grew when a squad car pulled up. The officers quickly realized who lived there. Karen, still standing out front with her arms crossed. An attitude on full display, had no idea she was moments away from a reality check she wouldn't forget. But what happened next? Well, let's just say this wasn't the kind of power trip Karen was prepared for. Stick around because the look on her face when the truth came out was priceless. Karen was still pacing outside, muttering to herself and probably rehearsing whatever speech she had prepared about community standards and respecting the HOA. She had her phone in one hand and a clipboard in the other, the kind she carries around like she's on some neighborhood patrol. What she didn't realize was that two officers who showed up knew my wife personally and, not just because they work under her. They respect her, admire her leadership, and know she doesn't mess around. But before we even get to that part, let me take you back a bit. Karen moved into our neighborhood about a year ago. Ever since then, she's made it her mission to police everything from the color of our mailbox to how long someone's car stays in the driveway. She's the kind of person who sends passive-aggressive emails about lawn, height, and throws a fit if trash bins are out an hour too early. Over time, most of the neighbors started avoiding her, and the rest, well, they just smile and nod to keep the peace. Now, my wife. She's the exact opposite of Karen. Level-headed, quiet, and not easily rattled. She's worked her way up through the police department with grit and grace, and she's always tried to keep her professional life separate from home. That's probably why Karen had no idea who she was dealing with. To her, my wife was just some woman who dared not answer the door when called. But from the moment those patrol cars pulled up, the entire vibe shifted. Karen, still standing there with that smug look on her face, had no clue what she had triggered. And as one of the officers approached our front door with a knowing smile, she started to sense something was off. But it was too late. She'd already crossed a line. The officer walked up the steps, knocked once, calm, respectful, and my wife finally opened the door. She looked surprised, but not rattled. That calm confidence she carries at work. Yeah, it was all over her face. The officer nodded and said, "Hey, Chief, sorry about this." Karen, standing just a few feet behind, blinked hard. You could almost hear her gears turning. Chief. That one word sucked the air right out of her lungs, but she still didn't back down, not yet. Instead, she marched over and tried to talk over everyone. "Excuse me, officer, I called this in. She's been ignoring community rules and acting suspicious," she said, pointing directly at my wife like she was about to lead a citizen's arrest. My wife didn't say much. She just looked at her, calm and still, letting Karen dig her own hole The officers exchanged a glance, one of those silent looks people give when something wild is unfolding in real time. This wasn't just about a knock anymore. It had become a weird kind of power play. Karen was used to everyone backing down, used to her threats of HOA violations, making people jump. But here, she was up against someone who actually had real authority, didn't need to shout about it. Meanwhile, a couple of neighbors started peeking out from their windows. One or two stepped outside, probably curious why two squad cars were out front, Karen noticed, and you could see her stiffen. Her carefully built image of control was slipping. But instead of backing off, she leaned into it. She started bringing up safety concerns, claiming my wife was uncooperative with the HOA, and hinting at previous incidents that had never actually happened. That's when I stepped outside. I'd been watching everything from the hallway. Karen's eyes locked with mine, and for a split second, I saw hesitation. But she wasn't done yet, and neither were we. Karen's expression shifted the moment I walked out. She'd been running the show up until now, or at least thought she was. But the second I joined my wife at the top of the steps, her grip on the situation started to crumble. Her voice, which had been sharp and full of fake concern, started to shake just slightly. Still, she tried to keep control. "This is a community matter," she snapped, holding up her clipboard like it gave her authority. She refused to acknowledge an HOA compliance knock. That's grounds for citation. The officers didn't say much. They stood to the side, letting Karen talk, but their body language said it all. They weren't buying it. One even glanced at the neighbor across the street, who was now recording everything on his phone, not to stir drama, but because things had reached a level no one expected in our normally quiet street. Word had clearly gotten out that something was happening. More neighbors started gathering along the sidewalks, pretending to water plants or walk dogs, all trying to get a better look. Karen, noticing the growing audience, decided to double down. She began listing made-up complaints she had received from other residents about our lawn, our porch light, even the way our recycling bin had been facing the street. It was reaching absurd levels. My wife stayed calm the entire time, not saying much, but I could feel her patience thinning. Then, Karen tried to flip it completely. "You know what? I don't think she should be in law enforcement at all. If she refuses to follow community rules," she said loud enough for the crowd to hear. A few people gasped. The officer standing closest to her raised an eyebrow. The tension was thick now, and even the birds had gone quiet. Every eye was on my wife, and the next words out of her mouth would decide everything. My wife took a slow breath and stepped forward, just enough to stand between Karen and the officers, not to block anyone, but to quietly reclaim control of her own front porch. "Are you really suggesting I lose my job over not answering my own door?" she asked, calm and steady. Karen opened her mouth to fire back, but before she could, another car pulled up. This one wasn't marked, a sleek black city vehicle. From it stepped Deputy Chief Alvarez, second in command at the department, and my wife's longtime colleague. Now the neighbors really perked up. This wasn't just a routine HOA squabble anymore. This had officially turned into something bigger. Karen's eyes darted from the deputy chief to my wife, trying to piece it all together. Alvarez walked up, offered a polite nod to the officers, then looked at Karen. "I was briefed about a situation involving our police chief," he said. "Thought it'd be best I see it myself." Karen immediately tried to spin it. "This is all being blown out of proportion," she said, suddenly adopting a softer, more innocent tone. "I only came to issue a simple HOA reminder. I didn't expect it to turn into this." She motioned at the patrol cars, the neighbors watching, the phones recording. But it was too late for backpedaling. Alvarez didn't respond to her directly. Instead, he turned to my wife and asked, "You good here?" She nodded once. And that's when Karen's phone rang. Loud, everyone heard it. She looked down, confused, then answered dumbly for her face to go pale mid-call. The person on the other end. The HOA president. And from what little we could hear, the call wasn't going her way. Whatever Karen thought she was running, she was losing it fast. And still, we hadn't said a single harsh word. But it was clear something was about to snap and Karen had no idea what was coming next. Karen slowly lowered her phone, her face drained of color. She turned to us, blinking fast, clearly rattled. "The HOA president wants to speak with you," she muttered, holding out the phone like it was a peace offering. My wife didn't take it. Instead, she calmly replied, "He has my number. He knows how to reach me." Karen hesitated, then tucked the phone away like it might burn her hand. The officers stood still, now fully aware this wasn't a situation they needed to intervene in, but were still very much enjoying how it unfolded. Then came the final blow. One of the neighbors who'd been quietly filming stepped forward. "Actually," he said, "you might want to stop while you're ahead. Karen, you're not supposed to be walking door to door enforcing anything. I was at last month's HOA meeting. That's not your role anymore," the crowd murmured. Karen's eyes darted around as she stammered, That's not true." But it was. The twist. Turns out she'd been unofficially removed from her self-appointed position after several complaints. People were just too polite to confront her directly. She was never voted in, never had real authority. She had been operating under the illusion of power, writing up notices on self-made forms and dropping them off like she was running the show. But the HOA had quietly stripped her of any involvement weeks ago. My wife gave her a small nod, not smug, just final. "You came here looking for a problem that didn't exist," she said. "Next time, knock respectfully, or don't knock at all." Karen didn't say another word. She turned, walked off the porch, and made her way back down the street, her clipboard tucked under one arm, shrinking with every step. The crowd began to drift off. The officers tipped their caps and left, and Alvarez gave us both a grin before driving away. It was over, or at least it seemed like it. But just 2 days later, we got an anonymous complaint filed directly with City Hall. Same handwriting, same fake concerns. Karen wasn't done yet.